The cobbles of Weatherfield have seen their fair share of blood, but did we ever expect a teenager to be the one holding the smoking gun? Or in this case, the stolen burner phone? Was this a calculated strike by a boy pushed to the edge? Or is Brody Michaelis just the easiest target for a police force desperate for a win? We're diving deep into the Coronation Street murder mystery that has everyone looking at the kids instead of the usual suspects. Theo Silverton wasn't just a villain. He was a parasite who thrived on the slow destruction of Todd Grimshaw's soul. When his lifeless body was discovered by a terrified Betsy Swain, the collective sigh of relief from the audience was almost audible. However, that relief has quickly curdled into a high-stakes whodunit that is tearing the community apart. We aren't just looking for a killer. We are looking for the person who decided that Corey's own brand of justice was the only way to stop a monster. The writers made a conscious choice to skip the courtroom drama, and honestly, it's a brilliant move for retention. Why sit through weeks of legal jargon when you can have the visceral thrill of a neighborhood-wide manhunt? In my opinion, putting the truth in the hands of the viewers rather than a fictional jury makes the stakes feel personal. We've watched Theo's narcissism alienate everyone, and now we're seeing the psychological fallout of his final act of cruelty. Theo was a homosexual homophobe, a man so broken by his own past that he could only feel powerful by breaking others. James Cartwright himself admitted that Theo had run out of road. If the show had gone to trial, we would have been forced to watch Todd relive his trauma over and over again. That isn't entertainment. That's a second victimization. By killing him off, the show provides a grisly death that serves as the ultimate catharsis for the fans. Psychologically, Theo's death allows the show to explore the minutiae of abuse, the small, horrible moments that a court would ignore but a murder investigation highlights. It's about more than the blunt force trauma revealed in the pathology report. It's about how an abusive presence lingers like a ghost, even after the body is cold. Todd's confusion, missing the man who tried to kill him, is a hauntingly accurate portrayal of the trauma bond. Just when we thought the heat was on Summer Spellman, the police pivot to Brody Michaelis. The evidence is damning. His fingerprints are all over Todd's missing phone, which was found in a pawn shop. Is Brody a cold-blooded killer, or is he just a kid who can't stop reverting to type when things get tough? Looking at Brody's history, he's lived a life of parentification, being forced to act like an adult while being trapped in a cycle of crime inherited from his family. He's flitted between villainy and redemption, showing a softer side with his sisters, but snapping back to car theft when the pressure mounts. My take: Brody is the perfect fall guy because his reputation precedes him. The police see a bad boy and stop looking for a mastermind. Brody's behavior is rooted in a deep-seated insecurity about his own identity. Finding out Kit Green, a copper, is his biological father should have been a turning point, but instead, it seems to have fractured him further. He's a kid who has never felt safe, and prison only reinforced the idea that he is doomed. When he steals that phone, it's not just a crime, it's a defense mechanism. He's taking what he can because he doesn't believe he'll ever be given anything. The ego of a teenager is a fragile thing, and Brody's lashing out at Tim and Sally shows a boy who feels let down by the very people trying to save him. He brands them useless foster parents because it's easier to hate them than to admit he's failing them. Internally, he's likely terrified that his DNA, half criminal, half cop, means he'll never truly belong anywhere. This internal conflict makes him unpredictable and, in the eyes of DS Lisa Swain, dangerous. Now, let's talk about Kit. Watching his own son get hauled away for theft and potentially murder is the ultimate test of his detective skills. Kit has been a sounding board for Brody, treating him like an equal when no one else would. But is Kit's interest in Brody genuine, or is he just another player on the cobbles with a hidden agenda? There's a unique angle here. If Kit is the one who eventually finds the evidence to clear Brody, he's a hero. But if he has to be the one to charge him, he's a failure as a father. I believe Kit is more manipulative than he lets on. He helped Brody figure out Tim and Sally's intentions, but he did it in a way that kept himself at the center of Brody's world. It's a power move, plain and simple. Kit's presence on the street has been a purple patch for the show's drama. He's the Batman of Weatherfield, but every Batman has a dark side. The irony of a detective whose son is the prime suspect in a murder he's investigating is peak soap opera. It creates a psychological tension where every piece of evidence is a potential betrayal. Does he protect his legacy, or does he protect his blood? Emotionally, Kid is likely feeling a mix of professional embarrassment and personal panic. He spent months trying to build a bond with this kid, only for Brody to, allegedly, involve himself in the street's biggest crime of the year. If Brody is guilty, it proves that Kit's mentorship was a waste of time. If Brody is innocent, it means Kit has failed to protect his son from the very system he represents. While the spotlight is on Brody, we cannot ignore Summer. She's currently sitting in a cell, ready to plead guilty to manslaughter. Is this a confession of guilt, or a symptom of a young woman who has been broken by Theo's psychological warfare? Summer wants her ordeal to be over, and she's willing to sacrifice her freedom to get it. This is a classic case of trauma-induced surrender. Theo ruined several lives, and Summer feels the weight of all of them. By pleading guilty, she's taking control of the narrative in the only way she knows how, by being the victim one last time. It's an incredibly frustrating move for the audience, but it's psychologically consistent for a character who has always carried the world's problems on her shoulders. Let's be real, 33% of fans think the killer is someone else. That's a huge number of people who don't buy the Brody or Summer theories. We've got Sarah Platt, Gary Windass, and even Theo's own son Miles in the mix. The show is a red herring factory right now. Every time a character looks shifty, the writers are reeling us in for another twist. I disagree with the idea that the killer has to be one of the big suspects. In my opinion, the most impactful killer would be someone we've been conditioned to trust. Imagine the psychological blow if it were someone like George Shuttleworth, who boshed Theo in the flat out of pure, protective rage. George sees Todd as a son, and the spotlight on him as a savior is a very real possibility. Gary Windass is the sheriff who doesn't like bullies. He felt hoodwinked by Theo, and we know what happens when Gary feels played. He has the professional partnership, the physical capability, and the moral high ground, in his own head at least. Gary's involvement would turn this from a whodunit into a story about vigilante justice. Psychologically, Gary operates on a different level of ego. He believes he is the only one capable of keeping the street safe. If he killed Theo, he wouldn't see it as murder, he'd see it as cleaning up. This insecurity, the need to be the hero, is Gary's greatest weakness and his most likely motive. He can't stand someone like Theo operating in his town. As if the murder wasn't enough, we've got Daniel Osborne falling apart at the seams. He's lashing out at his family, getting drunk, and endangering his own son, Brody. This subplot adds a layer of chaos to the street that makes everyone a potential suspect. When people are this unhinged, they stop making rational decisions. Daniel's temper is reaching a boiling point, and he's accidentally catching Ken in the crossfire. This is a downward spiral that mirrors the toxicity of the murder investigation itself. Everyone is on edge. Everyone is looking for someone to blame. Daniel's situation is a micro cliffhanger that keeps the tension high while the police are busy with Brody. The Truth Teller 2 posts have ruined Daniel's life, and he's taking it out on Megan. This is a brilliant commentary on the power of social media and reputation in a small community. Just like Brody is being judged for his past, Daniel is being judged for things he can't control. It's a psychological pressure cooker. Opinion-wise, I think the writers are using Daniel's meltdown to distract us from the real clues. While we're worried about Brody making his own tea in a smoke-filled room, the real killer is likely slipping through the cracks. It's a magic trick of storytelling. Look at the drunk guy over here, so you don't see the murderer over there. Let's go back to that phone. Forensic tests don't lie. Brody's fingerprints are there. But why would he take it to a pawn shop? If he was the killer, he'd destroy it. Taking it to a pawn shop is the act of a shoplifter or a petty criminal, not a murderer. It's too messy. It's too Brody. This leads me to believe that Brody is a witness, not the culprit. He likely found the phone at the scene and, being the wrong one that some fans claim he is, thought he could make a quick buck. His trauma has taught him to prioritize survival over morality. He doesn't see a murder weapon, he sees data allowance and a few quid. Brody's behavior is classic scavenger psychology. When you grow up with nothing, and you're constantly told you're a baddie, you stop caring about the big picture. You live in the moment. He saw the phone, he took it. He didn't think about forensics because he's used to being invisible or being blamed for things anyway. He's stuck in a cycle of crime that he doesn't know how to break. The tragedy here is that Brody was actually showing signs of maturing before this. He was working for Idris and doing well, but one bad decision, driven by old habits, has put him in the frame for a life sentence. It's a devastating setback for a character who is just starting to feel safe. The fear in his eyes when the police drag him off is the fear of a kid who knows his luck has finally run out. I predict that Brody will be cleared of the murder, but will still face time for the theft, further alienating him from Kit and the Metcalfs. This will push him back into the arms of the Michaelis family, specifically his mother Lou, when she returns. As for the killer, my money is on a tag team situation. Maybe one person caused the blunt force trauma, and another was responsible for the fall. The someone else theory feels the most likely because Coronation Street loves a bombshell reveal. If the killer is revealed to be someone like Sarah Platt, who has been acting strangely and hiding things with Gary, it would reset the entire hierarchy of the street. It would prove that anyone is capable of murder when they are pushed far enough. The cobbles of Weatherfield have seen plenty of drama over the years, but something feels different about this latest murder mystery. We've seen bodies hidden under the floorboards and villains meeting their end in tram crashes, but the death of Theo Silverton has sent a shockwave through the street that feels much more personal. I want to start by asking you a question that's been bothering me since that body was found. Was this really just a moment of madness from a neighbor who had finally seen enough, or is there a much darker, more calculated truth hiding behind those famous terraced houses? Theo Silverton wasn't just another bad guy. He was a master of making people feel small. When Betsy Swain stumbled across his lifeless body on the night of her mom's wedding, it felt like the end of a long, dark chapter, but it was actually just the beginning of a massive whodunit that has everyone pointing fingers. The funny thing about soap justice is that we often cheer when a villain gets what's coming to them. James Cartwright, the actor who played Theo, even called it Corey's own brand of justice. But when the law steps in and starts hauling people away in handcuffs, that's when the reality of the situation hits home. Is it really justice if an innocent person, or even a reformed person, ends up paying the price for a monster's death? Let's talk about Todd Grimshaw for a second, because he's right at the heart of this storm. Todd was the one who suffered the most under Theo's thumb, enduring months of physical and mental abuse. We watched Theo isolate him from his family and friends, leaving him bloodied and bruised in a final, terrifying attack. You'd think Todd would be jumping for joy now that Theo is gone, right? But the human mind is a complicated thing. The most heartbreaking part of the immediate aftermath was seeing Todd admit that he actually misses the man who tried to destroy him. He even said he wished it was Theo standing there instead of his friends. This is such a raw and honest look at how domestic abuse works. It's not just a physical prison, it's a mental one. Todd is dealing with a trauma bond that doesn't just snap the moment the abuser dies. Do you think Todd's grief makes him look guilty to the police? Or is he just a broken man trying to find his way back to the person he used to be? Then we have Summer Spellman. Poor Summer has already been through so much, and now she's sitting in a prison cell. The shocker here isn't just that she's a suspect, it's that she's planning to plead guilty to manslaughter just to make the whole ordeal stop. She's basically throwing her life away because she thinks it's her best chance at a lenient sentence. But why would she do that? Is it because she actually did it, or is she just another victim of Theo's psychological warfare? Theo had a way of ruining lives even when he wasn't in the room, and Summer wanting to surrender to the system feels like her final breaking point. In my opinion, if Summer goes to prison for this, it will be the ultimate victory for Theo from beyond the grave. What do you think? Is Summer protecting someone she loves, or has she simply lost the will to fight for her own freedom? And just when we thought things couldn't get any messier, the police pivot to a new target, Brody Michaelis. Now, Brody is a fascinating character because he's always been on that thin line between being a bad boy and finding redemption. He's been through the young offender system, he's been a bully, and he's been a thief. But he was also showing signs of maturing, especially after finding out that Kit Green is his biological father. But now, DS Lisa Swain has arrested him because his fingerprints were found all over Todd's missing phone. That phone was found in a pawn shop, which adds this weird, petty layer to a murder investigation. Wait, think about that for a minute. If you've just killed someone, are you really going to take their phone to a pawn shop where they'll ask for your ID and leave a digital trail a mile long? It doesn't make sense for a killer, but it makes a lot of sense for a kid like Brody who has spent his whole life parentified and looking for ways to survive. Maybe he just saw a chance to make some quick cash and didn't realize he was holding a piece of evidence from a murder scene. Or, as some people on the street are wondering, is he actually linked to the bigger crime? The psychological weight on Brody must be massive right now. He's finally found a father figure in Kit, and now that same man has to watch his son get dragged off for questioning. Can you imagine the betrayal Brody must feel, or the fear that he's just doomed to repeat his father's mistakes? Let's dive into the someone else theory because this is where the real fun starts. A poll of fans found that 33% of people think the real killer is someone we haven't even fully considered yet. Names like Sarah Platt and even Theo's own son, Miles, are being thrown around in the comment sections. Sarah has been acting a bit strangely lately, and she has a history with Gary Windass, who we know has a very low tolerance for bullies. Gary was hoodwinked by Theo, and we've seen him act as Weatherfield's own vigilante sheriff before. If Gary thought Theo was a threat to Todd or the neighborhood, would he have taken matters into his own hands? Then there's George Shuttleworth. We already saw George punch Theo once, and he's always been incredibly protective of Todd, treating him like a son. Could a man as kind as George really be pushed to commit murder? James Cartwright mentioned that George's motive could even be as simple as the Undertaker's needing business, which is a dark bit of Corey humor, but honestly, in a soap, anything is possible. But the real kicker is the pathology report. It revealed that there was blunt force trauma before Theo fell. That means this wasn't just a stumble or a push. Someone hit him with something. Who on that street has the temper, or the desperation, to pick up a weapon and end a life? Well, think about the pressure cooker that is Coronation Street right now. Daniel Osborne is having a total meltdown because of the Truth Teller 2 posts. He's lashing out at everyone, drinking way too much, and even accidentally hurting Ken. This whole storyline with Daniel feels like a huge distraction. While everyone is worried about Daniel's downward spiral and poor little Brody trying to make his own tea in a smoke-filled room, the real killer is likely flying under the radar. It's a classic misdirection. The writers want us to focus on the chaos of the Barlow house, so we don't see the clues hiding in plain sight elsewhere. Don't you think it's interesting how many people are falling apart at the same time? It makes everyone a suspect because everyone is unhinged, but I also want to look at the role of Kit Green in all of this.
Kit is in such a tough spot.
He's a detective who prides himself on his skills, but his own biological son is the one with fingerprints on the victim's phone. Kit has been trying to be a sounding board for Brody, talking to him like an equal and helping him navigate his feelings about his foster parents, Tim and Sally. But if Kit finds out Brody is involved, does he protect his son or his badge? The ego of a man like Kit is built on being the hero who solves the case. If the case leads back to his own blood, his whole identity is at risk. It's a fascinating psychological conflict. Do you trust Kit to do the right thing, or do you think he's hiding a dark side of his own? And what about the Michaelis family in general? Brody's mother, Lou, is headed back to the street soon, and we know there's some serious court drama waiting for her. Brody has been lashing out at Tim and Sally, calling them useless foster parents, because he feels they kept him in the dark about his mom's situation. This kid is just a ball of anger and insecurity right now. He feels let down by everyone who is supposed to look after him. When a teenager feels like the world has given up on him, he stops caring about the consequences. Is Brody's arrest for the phone just the beginning of a much longer prison stay for him? The producers have promised us that the truth will come out in late June or July, and that it's going to lead us into completely new kind of story territory, That makes me think the reveal isn't just about a name. It's about a massive twist that changes the show forever. Maybe the killer is someone who has been a staple of the street for decades. Maybe it was an accident that was covered up by a group of people. James Cartwright teased that we might see some flashbacks to show exactly what happened on that fateful night. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to see those missing pieces of the puzzle. The funny thing is, even though Theo was a monster, he made the show spicy.